everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. Today we're talking to Tamara Gillan, founder of WealthiHer Network, CEO of and founder of Cherry London. Cherry London is a new breed of marketing agency that uses the power of collaboration to unlock value, evaluate brands, empower the brave, and make visions real. It's one of the fastest growing award-winning marketing agencies specializing in strategic brand partnership. Tamara is a change agent, whether for businesses she consults or the wider society, through her female-led initiative like WealthiHer. She's been a Make Your Mark ambassador for young women, supporter of Mom to Mom, and sits on various advisory committees for Foreign Sisters, a group of high-profile women mobilized to increase awareness and funding for cancer research. She's won numerous personal and business awards and is on the committee and a judge for Women in Marketing Awards. I'm super excited that she took the time out to speak to us today, and let's learn about her work and how she can help empower you if you're a female out there struggling about your finances, struggling about your next step. Listen to this conversation because this really would resonate with you. Meet my amazing guest, Tamara, as she shares her story. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. Today's conversation: are you a woman? Are you a young girl? Are you thinking about your career path? Are you thinking about things you're doing and how that is truly making a difference in your life? Well, today's conversation is truly for you, young guy as well, because everyone out there, I'm sure we're all struggling with being a change agent. How do we make change in the work we do? How do we overcome pain from things, obstacles we've been through to find our joy? Meet Tamara as she shares her incredible story about the work she does and how she's found her joy doing this. Tamara, how are you?
I am very good and thrilled to be here. Thank you.
I am super delighted. I just can't believe your credential, I'll say it this way. You are an experienced entrepreneur and chief executive officer. You founded and ran 2 independent and successful and award-winning marketing agencies over the past 15 years. And you've done multiple partnership, big partnership, things that big companies don't even think about they could do this partnership, but you come up with these genius ideas. And a lot of us don't know we have the confidence or we have it in us to do this. Before we get started into any of this, into any of your great work, tell us a little bit about who are you?
I'm a mother. I think it's my number one job. I am a single mother. I am a proud entrepreneur. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My family were in business together, and that's been really, really important to me, and has driven a lot of my identity. But a really two-sided stories in that my father came from the East End of London. He worked his way up, and he was the natural entrepreneur, but he was in business over time, in family business, which I was involved in growing up. They were in hotels and wine. And then on the other side, I have my mother, who comes from a family of 8, 6 girls. She's a journalist and really strong female champions. And so I feel very privileged that from the kind of entrepreneurial side, plus this kind of female empowerment side, I had the privilege of having great strength in my background that always made me want to change things and be first and do things differently and fight for better, and gave me the confidence to sometimes, when I have hit those painful moments, which I definitely have, to get back up again, and sometimes too many times, but I thank them for that.
And you talked about your background, about your father being an entrepreneur and leading you on this path. When you think about your background growing up as a child, because I think a lot of great success of when I had this conversation with a lot of people, their background has an impact on them. When you look at yours, what was it truly like as a young girl growing up? What was it when you were an outdoor person? Did you always know you have it in you to fight and go through whatever life throws at you?
I grew up in London till I was 10, and because my mother's from New Zealand and my father was a Londoner, and she said, I want my children to grow up outdoors. I want them to have freedom as I grew up in New Zealand. So at 10, we left London and I moved to a tiny town of 15,000 people. We moved from London to a mini farm with sheep and horses, and so I was really lucky. But I was somewhat catapulted there. I remember when my brother and I landed there, and we went ahead. We were sent ahead of my parents. And we arrived and they said, please get your bags from the terminal. And we looked out and we were on a field airstrip, like a grass airstrip. And there was a shed. And next to the terminal was our bags. And we were like, where have we come? And we both had these reflective trainers and Sony Walkmans on. And we're like, where are we? But it was wonderful because, and actually we had to fight because I went there, to this rural school with, giant kids. New Zealanders are much bigger, particularly Maori and Polynesian children are much taller than I was as this little English girl with an English accent. And actually it was a bit of in the beginning I was a bit like, oh my goodness. And actually my accent was a bit of I was the pommy, but actually that was really good for me. And then I was lucky because we did in New Zealand, you did get to be freer and there was less, I think, vices of urban living and challenges. And you were a small fish, but in a tiny, tiny pond. And I was very, very grateful for that. But I think then my father's entrepreneurial side, my grandfather was a bare knuckle fighter after the war. To put food on his family's table, and so my father's family are quite fighters. They literally were. You fight, you earn your place in the world, and you look after your family, and you've got strong values. And so the two sides of that were really valuable to me.
What happened? You said in your notes that you came on your own from New Zealand at the age of 24 back to United Kingdom, moving halfway across the world, and this was after being. I'm not gonna go into the single mom bit because that bit we have to touch about it because that bit is so important. But I want to focus on moving back to United Kingdom at 24, halfway across the world. You decided, okay, I've learned my experience here. I think it's time to go back to United Kingdom. Why did you think you and your son would benefit from that kind of decision of moving about from New Zealand back to United Kingdom and back to the thing that, London is really busy, it's really chaotic, it's adventurous as well. But at the same time, New Zealand could be peaceful and moving a young child across. Did you think you wanted to do that? What was the reason behind it?
Well, my son was a distant dream at that point. So he was not even envisaged. And in fact, you're completely right. Because when I first came, a lot of New Zealanders come and they say, well, I'm going to go, I'm going to get experience, I'm going to live in London. And then they all go back. And I arrived in London and I had a lot of New Zealand friends I'd gone to school and university with, but slowly they trickled back because they wanted their kids to have an Australian or an Antipodean New Zealand life. Whereas I've stayed. I married an Englishman, so I definitely stayed. Divorced an Englishman, but we'll talk about that. But I think because of my father, that was where he was from. That's where he'd founded his first businesses. And myself and both my brothers came to London over the years. And we said, if we can make it there, we can make it anywhere. This is what we're set out to do. I don't think I'd realized when I first arrived how hard, I had a good university degree, but I couldn't get interviews when I first got here. And they were like, get your first job. And I'm like, well, no one will. I've got a first. And, no one would interview me. And I remember I actually sent people cooked, there's a chocolate biscuit called an Afghan cookie, and I sent people packs of these Afghan cookies and said, can you think outside the box? Here's my CV, I can, and the serotonin found in these biscuits will help boost you or make you more popular in the office. And I finally got interviews and I was able to get this great job and start my career here, which was thank goodness.
I can't believe what you just said because that is truly amazing. Yeah, I have to touch on that because on a serious note, so many young girls struggle. And what you've just said is that they always say, get your first job before we give you an opportunity. What would you advise someone who's going through that difficulty right now? Many young kids are going through that difficulty because when they apply, they have no experience. And even though they want experiences, they can't get it because no one's willing to take that risk. What would you tell a young person right now who's going through that pain?
I think it is difficult, and we know that from the work I do, that 2020 was the worst year to graduate in over a decade because of the impact of the pandemic on career prospects. However, one thing I do feel is hope, because I do see in the business, whether that's my consultancy world or WealthiHer world, is that business is emerging again and opportunities are coming back. But I definitely know from internships, there was just such a lost opportunity for this generation. And my advice would be, I think ask the question and try and get to someone to ask them to help you. I have a rule that if anyone ever gets to me, they get my email address or they write to me on LinkedIn or they find me and say, please help me, I will do my best to help. We've got an amazing girl that joined us as an intern called Ellie Dyer. She's with us currently. She's now been taken permanently on the team. She actually came because she reached out to one of our actually investors who then reached out to me. So I just think it's so important to ask the question and just try and find people. Or there's an amazing, wonderful girl. We do work with Girl Up, which is a United Nations foundation which gives leadership to young women, and we donate to Girl Up. And there's an amazing group of young women who've been through that program. There's this amazing girl called Moffy, and she's one of their advisors. And she invited me to the theatre to meet Stephen Bartlett, and he does Diary of a CEO, the podcast. He sold Social Chain, and she said, please come with me. And then when we went to the meet and greet, and I said, ask him for an intern or placement, ask him. So when we went up and did the meet and greet, she was like, and I was like, she's amazing, you need to have her. And she's got the summer placement, she's going to go there. And she said, I'd heard him say it on a podcast. So find them, whatever it takes, find them and ask, or ask people to help you get to them, because they want to, or the good people do.
Oh, Tamara, thanks for sharing that. I think anyone who listens to this will be so helpful that it takes courage. It takes just looking around, asking, just be bold, just go do it and speak to someone who might help you. And you're out there, you can always ask you for one or two pieces of advice. And I think it's amazing.
Absolutely. And I always say, ask me. I am old now and I know lots of people. So I'm like, who do I know? Who can I help? I want to.
Oh, it's really amazing. You got divorced and you had a son. What did impact of divorce, being a woman and being someone who's also driven in your business, how did that help affect you, and how did you overcome that challenge of being, because I always ask this important question because I know so many women, especially after the pandemic, went through that difficult phase of getting divorced. They found their marriage was not working anymore, and then they realized that divorce probably was not the answer for them, because probably the man was the breadwinner, and now their income is really dramatically decreased. But you went through that phase. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and how you managed to overcome that pain and become the person you are today? Because you are incredible in what you've achieved. And can you tell us that journey?
Thank you. Yeah, I think divorce is a horrible, hard thing for anybody, and I think it's not what you go into a relationship with love in your heart, the dream of everything. If that's what you want, or if you're lucky, that is what you want, and you're lucky you have children, and you share that with a person, and then it ends, and there is all sorts of emotional ramifications, financial ramifications, and actually one of the reasons, one of the things, we do a lot of work with WealthiHer of championing women in vulnerable moments, whether that's divorce or even the positive moment, and ensuring that anything that happens to that relationship doesn't negatively impact a woman and her children, so that women are prepared for a relationship not ending well or the end of life. And I think it's really important, and I always say it's a double whammy. If you're British, we don't talk about money, and if you're a woman, we don't talk about money. There's so many cultural things. Like for me, my father was the breadwinner. I would never, I never wanted to talk about my success, but I never wanted to talk, even though I got married very late. I had assets going into that marriage. I never wanted to talk about protecting my assets, which was my business. I had a property, because that would undermine love. Culturally, that's not what you do. And in fact, one of the things I've heard some of the amazing WealthiHer, there's a wonderful family lawyer called Zara Pabani, and she says, from Owen Mitchell, talk about it when things are good. If you go into a relationship when everything's happy and you say, what happens if we were to divorce? What happens if we weren't to be together? How would we divide this? Because people are much more likely to be fair when things are good, not when they're bad. And so that was one of the big motivations for WealthiHer. But someone said to me, a really good friend who is also a lawyer said to me, let me take over the negotiations, because I got to a point where I just wanted to give in everything. I just wanted it to be done. I was like, please, I can't, I'd spent a lot of money getting divorced. And she said, let me help you. I'm rational. You're no longer rational. You just want this done. That was really helpful. She also said to me, just put one foot in front of the other, like keep moving forward, and it will be hard. I had a 1-year-old child, and I was sitting there thinking, this is, and I was back running my business, and it was, and my family were that was, one of the downsides on the other side of the world, in New Zealand. And I just thought, this is a really dark place for me. However, I did keep putting one step in front of the other, and I'm really lucky. I have some amazing people in my life. There was a lady called Daryl Fielding, and she actually messaged me and said, let me be your divorce coach. And it's not the bit that's the divorce, it's the bit that comes afterwards. And she'd been divorced. And so again, it's asking for help or letting people know. And I wasn't very good at that. And then the kids bit was really hard as well, because, I had the first birthday alone. I just separated, and I was there at the first birthday, and all these friends were like, I'm doing the sandwiches. My parents came over. My dad made so many egg sandwiches and tuna sandwiches and put up the decorations. And so really asking people for help, because otherwise you can sit there, and then believe that you can love on the other side, because you can. Probably a bit more, I would be a bit more I am a bit more savvy than I was, but you can love on the other side.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad that you found your way out of this. You've always mentioned turning 30 was a milestone for you, and the catalyst to start your own business. I know this was before, not during the divorce process, but why particularly 30? Because some people say turning 40 is the milestone for them when they started to see clearly. I think of 30 and I think, I'm not quite sure I knew exactly what I wanted. I know I wanted to be out there, but I'm not quite sure how I could fit that into a successful business. But for you, this was a milestone. Can you explain why turning 30 meant so much to you?
I think it was just, I've always been hungry to get on and do things. And so it was when I came to London, I said, I'm going to work for a marketing agency, then I'm going to work for a client, and then I'm going to start my first business by 30. In some ways, it was blind naivety, because I did not know what I was doing. I knew some of my craft, and I knew that I wanted to do partnership marketing. I thought that there's this area of partnership marketing. I'd been working at Orange, which became EE then, and I'd been doing quite a few partnerships. And I thought, oh, there's something in here. And ironically, it was around moments and partnerships. And I just said, I need a deadline, so why not have one at 30? So I just started my first business. And in some ways, it was the making of me and the decline of me, because I built that business. We had Red Bull as a client, Superdrug, Procter and Gamble, but it crashed and burned after 3 years, because I didn't know how to run the business. And someone went out of business owing us money, and that was a valuable lesson. And I sometimes see, I luckily work with lots of entrepreneurs now, and I do often, or want to be entrepreneurs, and I hear people saying, I'm going to start, I'm just doing some research. So I do think people need to have a clear plan, but they need to start, because otherwise you never know. And as my mother always said, what's the worst thing that can ever happen? It can fail, but will you get a job, or can you get back on your feet? Yes. And it did fail. And again, she said to me, what's the worst that can happen? It has failed. What are you going to do? And I cried. And then I thought, after a few months, I think I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to be smarter. And that's when Cherry was born, in 2009. So, and again, valuable lessons learned.
And as a woman, obviously you must have seen so many challenges being a woman trying to establish your own business. What are some of the lessons you've learned during starting up your business, and what are some of the lessons you've learned?
I think it's really important to not go it alone, and being, I'm an entrepreneur's daughter. I've got entrepreneurialism in my vein, and actually have been a bit of a lone wolf at times. I'm used to leading from the front or in the middle, and that's just the way I am. However, team and people around you that compliment you, challenge you, and actually someone said that terrify you because they're better at something, so much better at something that you're not, actually makes your success, and rewarding those people as they go with you. So I think those things are, that teamwork does make the dream work, but it also creates actually you enjoying the journey more. I think that I am also a little bit at times relentless on myself. I judge myself, as we all do, the harshest. I don't think we would ever say some of the things we tell ourselves to our worst enemies, and don't celebrate the successes enough. There's always something else. The list always, and my mother said that to me. She said, there's always more on the list. There'll always be more on the list. So take a break, recognize some good stuff that you've done, and get, because otherwise we don't. There's just this relentless what next, what next. And it isn't financial what next, it's just more things to do on the list. And with Wealthy Her, it's a purpose-based business. There's doubly more, there's triply more always on the list. So you have to get rid of some of those things on the list, or at least give yourself a break. And my father said, nurture yourself, because you can't do, your job as an entrepreneur or a leader is to be passionate, empathetic, see the vision, inspire people. Well, if you're exhausted, which I have often been at times, beyond exhausted, you can't do your job, and you can't be there for your own people or in the way that you need to be. So that nurture piece, I think, and self-love is so key.
Oh, wow. I love what you said when you said what next, because we women tend to have what next of what the list. But a lot of times is sometimes what is the financial what next? We forget that. We don't tick that box, okay, what the financial, no, what next. We want the what, yeah, we have a long list of to-do lists, but very little do we talk about the financial side of impact of how much value, if with this business is making this amount of money. We don't really talk about it. And I'm so glad that this is something you're really working with women to understand. You're a champion of diversity, women empowerment, and a natural born collaborator. How do you develop the skills to get women to understand diversity better, get men to understand how to work with women even better, and how to collaborate in business? Because one of the things people struggle is also collaboration. They want their business to expand, but they just think they could do it alone. But one thing that you've taught us, and one of the things I think is one of the success in your career, is that collaboration. How did you get on that path?
I think that everything that I started to do naturally was to say, well, if Superdrug, and I always loved the underdog, and it was my first ever campaign or program I sold I was one person, and I sent them a letter and a pack very similar to the cookies. And I said, I want you're never going to outspend Boots. You're going to have to be smarter. And I sent them this pack, and I said, I think you should own women going on holiday, because we spend so much thinking about going on holiday, thinking about getting ready, preparing to go, products to go when we come back, cheering ourselves up. Own that moment, not all of the moments. And partnerships, if you want to talk to women going on holiday, partnerships sat at the heart of that. And it comes down to a fundamental understanding of people. What is it that you want? So as an organization or as an individual, what is it that you want? What are your goals? And I would apply that to the individual as well, whether it's like, this is what I want to achieve. Be honest and be brave and be bold on those objectives. But equally, what have I got to offer? Some of that can be skills, some of that can be network, some of that can be, if you're a brand, opportunities to a channel. And then what do we therefore, what are people that fit in that mix? How can I go to them and offer them something that they want, that relates to what I'm trying to achieve, that's got some inherent value that I've got, and treat it as a bit of a kind of broader, like value exchange. What have I got to offer in its full sense? What do I want? And what do they want? What are the things I can give them easily that are actually not, for someone, I actually once did a partnership with ASOS, and actually for them, they weren't on the high street. Being in malls on the high street was a major value to them. We could give them that because we had those opportunities, but really finding that value exchange is where it belongs. And also I think it's about relationship development, really understanding who you're working with, and how, and actually holding each other accountable. It's why Wealthy Her has been so successful, because we launched with 12 partners. We said, if the finance industry works together, think what we can achieve. But equally, once we had 5 partners, another 5 partners were like, oh, we have to be part of this. We can't not be part of this. So you create an impetus for people to want to come on board as well. So I think being strategic about it, and then building relationships over time, because it's not very, it's not going into the beginning of a relationship saying, I'm going to give you this value, you're going to give me this value, never talking about that again, never saying, how are we doing? What else could we do? How do we go further? How do we give you more of what you want? And so I think that rigorous relationship sort of value exchange is over time is also key.
And key to talk about Wealthy Her, because I mean, this is the one of the first thing that's been out there that really celebrates this and support female wealth building. Now, this is really something that I wish I had this when I was 30. because I think it's so empowering as women that we understand our financial status, we understand what we could talk about and what we shouldn't talk about. And there you are, you've created this platform for women. Can you tell us a little bit about this organization and what you hope to achieve with this?
Absolutely. And I just have to say, I am terrible at management of my own finances. I'm getting smarter because of all of the advice I've had from WealthiHer. But my management of financial goals and aspirations has been the last thing on that list I've talked about. And so in some ways we were seeking to fix that. But actually I am only on a beginning of my journey of financial prosperity. But it came of an idea. Someone actually from JP Morgan approached me, and she was a Forbes 30 under 30, passionate about female empowerment. And she almost says, I dare you, do you think you could get the most competitive industry in the world, the finance industry, who compete against each other, to work together, to understand women, to better serve women, and to help financially educate and empower them? And I love a dare. I was like, yeah, I've built loads of networks and memberships and partnerships. I think we can. And so WealthiHer's mission is to financially empower women, to help identify the moments in a woman's life where the way that she behaves, divorce, marriage, partnership, changes her prosperity or that of her family or herself over time, to financially educate her and to connect her to people, which could be each other, women together, or business, entrepreneurs and funders, connect her with people that can help advance her. But that is only a one-sided story. And that's why the partnerships are so important, is actually it's all very well educating women, empowering women. But in fact, if we don't change the industries that support and serve women, we create barriers that limit that prosperity and advancement. So for example, 2% of funding goes to female business owners and founders. That is woeful. It started to improve over the last few years. It shrunk back during the pandemic. So if we don't drive awareness, not only of female entrepreneurs, where do you get funding? How do you best prepare yourself? Connect them to funders. If we don't change the other side and they're still not getting funding because there's bias, because deals aren't done in the room, we're not doing the job. Similarly, if for women, it's so emotional. We often say, if you say, come and talk to me about your pension, some people will go, oh yes, my long-term financial investing. I would go, oh please, in a former life, not anymore. But if we said, come and talk about the cost of love, money in relationships, talking to your children about money. My son is 7. I asked him a few years ago, where does money come from? And he said, the bank. I said, oh, how did it get there? Paper, scissors, stamps. I said, didn't mummy's work put it there? Oh no, mummy, your work's fun. I've been there. And I thought, he doesn't even know where money is. I've got all this guilt about working. So you have to talk in the mold, for women, it's like, what matters to women? How do you talk to them with financial expertise? But also we work with amazing therapists like Kelly Hearn, who come in and talks about the emotions of talking to your children about money, things to overcome without guilt of talking, So that multidimensional education and collaboration is utterly key to sort of solving the problems.
And anyone who wants to find you, how would they find you to know more about this amazing platform?
If you WealthiHerNetwork.com, or if you follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, if you want to join us, sign up so that you can come to some of our educational, our events. If you want to be a partner, we work with the finance, with the legal industry, but equally those powerful organizations that can help us advance women together. We are open for it all.
I think this is incredible. I'm so glad you started this, because it's true. It's very difficult to talk about money, especially a woman. It's not inbred in us. It's not something our parents have ever taught us. Sometimes the men are so comfortable about it, but the women, we say, that's not your area. Don't focus so much on it. And there's severe consequences, especially when you look at statistics. Men tend to die earlier than women, and they leave all this wealth, and women don't even know how to manage this wealth. Men have
so women are living 10%, 8 to 10% longer than men. So, and there is an extremely vulnerable moment when you suddenly are like, I didn't do this. Yeah. I've sat with women in focus groups who've said, I couldn't even work our smart home, let alone, know where our banking accounts are or how I did things. My mother, who is a hugely powerful woman. I mean, I find her slightly terrifying at times. But when I was with my family in the middle of the pandemic and I was saying, Mum, she married an older man, my dad, he's 85 years old. And I said, Mum, you don't have anything in your name. And she said, I don't want to, he's always been the provider, the entrepreneur. I don't want to undermine his confidence by asking to, now that he's aging, to put things in our joint name. And I'm like, Mum, you'd actually be limited through probate. You couldn't even access money. You'd be crippled while this process went on. And it was incredibly hard for her to not to say, I think you're dying, give me your access to the bank accounts, because that's not the truth either. But it's so emotionally complicated for people that we have to talk about it, and we have to give them the tools and expertise, because otherwise it's not being talked about. And there is some shocking stats, although it is improving. The female self-esteem was a third of a man's. It's now gone to about a half of a man. So there's a confidence issue. Financial confidence was dramatically different. And where women are very involved in mortgages, maybe savings, cash ISAs, when it comes to pensions, longer term investments, we are and women and men are 9 times more likely to be engaged in those than women. And the number one driver of female well-being is financial autonomy. So having that, and it's about freedom to live how I want. It's about being able to provide for my loved ones, whether that's children or parents, my friend. So for women, it's all about all of the things we hold dear, and it's about our overall well-being. So it's vital that we seize control and step forward. And I loved in our latest research that we did at the end of last year, in that 51% of people, although the pandemic has had a number of regressive impacts on women, said, I want to step forward and I want to take control. I want to get more involved. And I think that's our responsibility. That's our opportunity.
I hope by this conversation we even get more women, because I believe this is the power for women. If we know where our money goes, if we know how to spend money, and especially also the spending bit, sometimes we just think it would come back anyway, we could just spend this, but we don't have that long-term plan. So it's also putting that into the agenda. I don't know if that's something you guys look into, about the long-term, how women's spending habit, because if you notice, most of the shopping is all tailored towards women. We're the one who buy the makeup, we're the one who really buy the clothes. So it's also understanding our spending habits so we could have more on the bank as well. I don't know if that's something you guys.
It's not something that we directly do ourselves as well, if you heard, but what our financial experts do. And one of the first thing they say is, where are you? Let's do an audit of where are you? And I've been in the same position where I'm like going into my online account, like putting it into a little, like, where do I spend money? I don't even want to look. Like, I'm almost a bit scared in case I'm horrified where it comes up. Superdrug, foods, like, oh my goodness. But one woman said to me that was very fascinating, go and look at how much you spend on subscriptions a month. It was £150. And some of those subscriptions, some of them were gym, some of them were media subscriptions, I didn't even know I had anymore. And so she said, if you could put that £150 into an account for your son's university education or house later on, by the time he gets there, you'd have something valuable for him. And that was such an eye-opener. So he was like scared to look because I'd see how naughty my spending was. But actually, there were these things I wasn't even valuing anymore. So doing that audit of just, where are you? And then, as you say, starting to plan, what do I want to achieve? If I did it now, how would I get there? And, on the other end, the negative end, which I know, the number one reason historically why a woman will do the old-fashioned payday loans of Wonga. Now I would argue some of the things such as Klarna, some of those things such as Klarna, they're interest-free now, but the penalties or store cards was for a kid's birthday or Christmas. So women do things because they're like, I just want to make this dream come true for my child. And so they put themselves into cycles of debt. So I think that knowledge is so important, and that planning, and we don't know. So let's start getting experts talking to women, which is what we hope to do with that gap, because I don't know either. As I've said, I've listened to them, taken notes, got rid of my subscriptions, but we need the experts to tell us.
Aside from that, you're the founder of Cherry London, and everyone might hear this from you, that you you're doing WealthiHer, this platform helping women, but you also founded a leading business. Can you tell us a little bit about this other bits you do and how you work in collaboration? Because it's not easy. You've done some successful things, which many people will never think about, how to get people on board and do the work you do. Tell us a little bit about your business and how you got that bit started.
So when in 2009, when I had lost, well, I'd lost my other business the year before, and I was very, decided to let it go, and I was very crying. I said, what is it that made it great? And it was this partnerships and collaboration work that we had sort of started working in. So I said, I want a differentiation. It was the middle of a financial crisis. I need to do something differently. I also had been fortunate. I found a business partner, who was this amazing woman called Susie Burdekin, and she was a light and a joy, and it actually being on that journey with her was amazing. And her father actually, God, they might not like me saying this, but he actually lent us money to start. And I also got another amazing investor called Nick Horswell, and he said, I will invest for the beginning of in the middle of a crisis, you to do something breakthrough in this partnerships area, which hadn't really been done. It was a bit of an emerging field, and we were very much the pioneers of that. We were really, really lucky. So early on, I was sitting in our office with 4 people, Susie and I, sitting in our office, and we got a call, and it was O2, the mobile phone operator, and they said, "Hi, we've heard that you've met someone from Vodafone, and I knew someone in my previous mobile career from Vodafone, and I've now moved to O2, and O2 Priority was their big customer reward program, and they said, we're reinventing it. We do music, but we want to be about film and gaming and everything. Do you think you could help us?" I fell over the desk to answer the phone. I was so excited. I was like, yes, I can definitely help it. Yes. And they called us in, and we relaunched, I think 6 months later, what became Priority Moments. We grew the team, and we looked after that program for 10 years. We had we brokered partnerships with everyone from the gaming industry, like EA Games. We did walk-on film parts with Lucasfilms and The Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings series, and we brokered those deals, going back to those very basic principles that said, what does O2 have that it can offer, and what does it want? So for films, they want to be able to tell millions of people about a new film. They want to have people talking about those gaming companies. They want to have people trialing, who are real games enthusiasts, trialing games before anybody else. So we got games to customers before anybody else. And we were able to create this amazing program. We did work with the likes of ASOS in fashion. We worked with getting fashion first to people. So it was really exciting. We worked with HSBC thereafter. We ran their Jade program globally. We worked on the pilot for This Girl Can, which was about getting young English women, or British or English women, playing sport, with the amazing Tanya Joseph. And that really reignited my passion for female empowerment and working to advance women, because we sat in these focus groups, and young women were saying, what don't you like about sport? Everything. Why don't you want to play sport? Because I don't want to look sweaty in front of boys. It makes my makeup run, and I'm 13, and being attracted to boys is more important than my own sportiness. I quite like sport, if I went with a friend. And actually, so many of those parallels are similar for finance. I don't want to look too, financially savvy for a man. I don't want to look too successful. I don't want to, very similar, these cultural things that impact women. And actually that really and we did quite a few other projects in that kind of purpose space for entrepreneurs with access. So I was very, very excited about WealthiHer when the opportunity fell on, or the idea fell on me. And it saved me, because I think I was a bit, it's where I spent, spend 95, 80, 100% of my time now, because I don't think anyone could go through the pandemic and not say, how do I use what I have learned and what I can do to help others? Yes, it's about business, and yes, it's about advancing our partners, but mainly it's about advancing women. And I think it saved me to do something that I truly love. And I think I had become lost and trapped, and actually this saved me. And so doing something that really mattered to me.
If I get to my final question, you talk so much about people and how much people make a difference in one's business. What is your driving force that you believe that human being makes in your business, in being successful in a business?
I think my dad said, if you believe you can do anything, and I think self-belief, even, and I have had my pain and my dark moments when I have not believed myself. I think, running my business from New Zealand in the pandemic, because as I told you in our pre-chat, getting stuck there in my bedroom at my parents, there were moments at 2 o'clock in the morning where I was thinking, what am I doing? This is, but actually, if you keep believing and you say, I can do this, I can push through, I can keep my team together. I know everyone's faltering in this pandemic. I've got to keep going. And we did, and we did. So I think belief is so important. I think I touched on it on the beginning. I think that being in it with people, we are all in it, in this together. So in fact, whether that's the male ally, everybody working together, but also recognizing, what do other people want? I think that I was old school. I didn't actually realize flexible working we did a bit of, but I was kind of we're in the office. Well, the pandemic reinvented all of that, and I learned a very different way of working, and it works. So, and that for some of my team, they get to, their dads are there with their kids, mums are more there, their pets, they get to walk them, and we are now coming back together. But what do people want in their journey? And one of the things that we actually said early on in Cherry was, we're going to over reward mums and dads, or we're going to have a really generous paternity and maternity policy, because in fact, if we as a small team can't support each other when Ed's having, wants paternity to be with his wife and his children, what are we doing? Let's all work extra hours for Ed in that moment. And we're small and we're tiny, but if we can't help each other realizing our own what matters to people, what are we doing? So actually giving value to people as they want it. Or, my wonderful Amy in my team, she's got a dog. I'm like, Ted comes to our meetings. She's like, I will never come to the office 5 days because I want to be there for Ted. I'm like, you don't have to. You're amazing, Amy. I get to keep you. Ted can come to meetings, and we all get to achieve. So giving people what's important in their life, I think is important to success as well.
Before I let you go, the final question: female entrepreneurs are struggling post-pandemic, raising funds, getting business advice, finding their confidence. What would be your one advice or many advice that you would give to a female entrepreneur to tell them that it can be done, and you've come from it? You've been a single mother, you've run many successful businesses, you are out there really doing it and being bold in your own decision in what you do. What would you tell to a female entrepreneur?
I'd say think differently, which is a hard one. So I think be aware of the different funding options that are out there, because I think there are different ones, and ones I didn't even know, like crowdfunding. One of the top funders for women is crowdfunding, where you ask people to support you. And I didn't know that. So I think be aware of options for growth. I think, like we talked about, ask the question, find someone to help you, whether that's introduce you to someone that can grow your business or help you with funding, because you need that support, because we know of the biases. And one of the challenges that I'm saying on the other side is, to our financial expertise, is find just 3 women who are business owners and you back them. If you're in a funding capacity, if you're in a promotional capacity, you back them, you find them, you hunt them down, and you help them. So go out and say, I need your support, or come to me and say, I need help here. And I will try and direct you from across our network. And then look after yourself, because the journey, it's, being a single mother is hard, for sure. Being an entrepreneur and a leader is equally hard. And so nurture yourself and reward yourself when you do, whether it's a lip gloss from Superdrug, my favorite. I found these lipsticks just recently, and I love them, but they are my little reward. I've done something good. Pink lipstick from Superdrug, and that just gives me a boost. So I think reward yourself. You recognize when you do great stuff and when you step forward, because you are doing great stuff and you are going somewhere.
Oh my goodness, Tamara, I could have you here all day talking about the very subject, and I hope to have a second conversation in the future, because this is truly amazing. You're really doing amazing work supporting women on their journey to find that confidence, which a lot of women lack. And it could be through the pandemic, it could be through culture, it could be through ethnic, it could be anything, whatever the case might be. But please keep doing what you're doing. I truly appreciate this. And thank you so much for spending this time and sharing your journey with us. Thank you.
And you, awesome, fabulous woman who is an absolute inspiration. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.